The laughter started as soon as Cade entered the room. 3 tall alien women stood near the control panel. Their eyes glowed faint blue, and their skin shimmered like polished stone. They were Xeran warriors known across the stars for their beauty, strength, and pride. Cade wasn't one of them. He was shorter. His muscles were lean, not bulky. His skin was soft, his voice calm. Compared to the Zarian male's brutal, loud, arrogant, Cade looked like a worker drone. "That's him?" one of the sisters said, smirking. "The human," said the second. "They actually trust him to fix our ship." The third sister didn't say anything. She just stared, eyes full of quiet amusement. Her name was Koresha, the eldest, the leader. Of the trio, her arms were crossed, and her smile was sharp. Cade walked past them without saying a word. He carried a small toolkit and wore a simple gray uniform. His boots clicked softly on the floor. "Hey, Earthman," one of them called. "Need help lifting that little box?" The others laughed again. Cade didn't respond. He walked straight to the engine access panel, crouched down, and began working. The room was full of tension now, but not the kind that made people nervous. It was the kind that made people watch, waiting to see if the joke would fall apart. "Look at him," one of the sisters whispered, loud enough for him to hear. "He's so slow. It'll take him a week." "Don't worry," another said. "If he breaks something, we'll just toss him in the recycler." Still, Cade said nothing. His fingers moved quickly across the console. His eyes read the diagnostics like second nature. He knew where the fault was. He had already fixed 3 similar systems on other ships, but this one was different. This time, they were watching. Behind his silence, Cade was thinking, remembering. Earth used to be mocked, too called, weak, soft, slow. But those who laughed at Earth weren't around to laugh anymore. A soft hum echoed through the engine core. The lights flickered, systems reactivated. The main console lit up green. Koresha's smile faded. "He did it," whispered the younger sister. "No way," said the second. "The engineers said it was a core sync failure. They said only full rebuild." He realigned at Koresha, said, stepping forward. Her eyes narrowed. Without breaking a sweat, Cade stood, wiped his hands, and turned around. "All done," he said, voice calm. No pride. No smirk, just facts. Koresha stared at him, not with mockery, but anymore. There was something else in her eyes, now confusion, curiosity. "How did you know where to look?" she asked. He shrugged. "Your diagnostics are advanced, but your logic tree is too linear. You kept checking the result, not the root." There was a long silence. The 3 sisters stood still. Then one of them asked quietly, "What's your name again?" "Cade." "Cade," Koresha repeated. She said it slowly, like she was tasting the sound. "You're not like the other human males I've seen." Cade gave a small smile. "Probably not." He packed his tools and walked past them again this time. Not a single joke followed him, only eyes. Watching, he didn't look back. But the youngest sister, still leaning by the wall, followed his every move with wide, glowing eyes. There was a tiny tremble in her hand. Her heartbeat had changed. She didn't understand why, but something inside her had shifted. That night, in the privacy of their chambers, the sisters argued. "You saw how calm he was," the middle one said. "Like he knew more than us." "He does know more," Koresha replied, "at least in his work." "But he's not even a warrior," said the younger one. "He doesn't train. He's not ... strong." Koresha didn't answer at first. She stared at her reflection in the polished wall. She remembered the way Cade's eyes didn't flinch, even when they mocked him. She remembered the steady hands, the way he spoke with quiet control. "He might be stronger than any of us," Koresha finally said. The others looked at her like she'd gone mad. But the youngest, she stayed quiet. Later that night, she walked to the humans' quarters. She didn't knock. She just stood outside and listened. Inside, Cade was humming to himself, working on something again. Quiet, focused, like always. She stayed there for a long time, and when she finally turned to leave, She whispered to herself just one sentence. He's going to change everything. Asterisk the next morning, everything felt different on the ship even, if no one said it out loud. Cade walked through the hall like usual, toolkit in hand, expression calm. But this time, no one mocked him. No one laughed. The sisters didn't even speak when he passed. They just turned and watched eyes narrow, thoughts racing. He went straight to the engine room again, not because something was broken. He just wanted to double-check the core stability. Yeah. He always believed that machines like people gave subtle warnings before things went truly wrong. He just had to listen. Behind him, the door slid open. He didn't turn. He didn't have to. I figured I'd find you here, said Kyrene, the middle sister. Her voice had changed. No more teasing. No more sarcasm. Cade responded without looking back. Problems don't wait until we're ready. She crossed the room and stood beside him, arms folded. But this time, not in pride, more like uncertainty. What you did yesterday, she said quietly. Our best engineers couldn't do that.
Oh.
They follow rules, he replied finally. Looking at her, I follow patterns. There's a difference. For the first time, Kyrene didn't know what to say. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came. Cade returned to the panel. A light flickered minor, but he adjusted it anyway. You don't act like the others, she finally said. Is that a compliment or a warning? She gave a small laugh. But it didn't feel like a joke. I haven't decided yet. They stood in silence for a moment. Then she spoke again, softer this time. My sister Karashishe hasn't stopped talking about you. Cade didn't react, and my younger sister, she was outside your door last night. Still no reaction. Kyrene tilted her head, searching his face. You already knew. Cade nodded slowly. I heard her breathing. Let her stay? She left on her own. Kyrene took a step closer, now only inches from his side. Her voice dropped even lower. What do you want from us, human? He paused his work, then turned fully to face her. I didn't come here wanting anything, he said, but you all gave me something anyway. She frowned. What do we give you? Doubt, curiosity, a reason to prove you wrong. There was a sudden silence. Kyrene's breathing slowed. Her pupils widened slightly. Scent of her skin shifted chemical signals, subtle but powerful. Her body was reacting, and she couldn't stop it. She stepped back quickly. I shouldn't be here. Cade nodded, then go. But she didn't. She stood frozen for another long moment, before finally turning and walking away faster than she wanted to. Later that day, Cade was called to a different section of the ship. The coolant vents were showing irregular pressure. He knew it wasn't serious. Still, he went. It gave him something to do, something to focus on besides. The 3 pairs of alien eyes that had started following his every move. When he arrived, he was surprised to see the youngest sister already there. She was crouched near the open panel, tools scattered. Her hands were shaking slightly. Cade stepped beside her and gently took the wrench from her fingers. You're using the wrong end, he said, not unkindly. She looked up, embarrassed. Her cheeks flushed a deeper shade of violet. I wanted to understand what you do, she said quietly. You make it look easy. It's not, he replied. But it becomes natural when you stop trying to look impressive. She stared at him, lips parted slightly. Teach me. He raised an eyebrow. Why? Because when I watched you work, I didn't feel like a warrior. I felt like a child. I liked it. Cade nodded once, then knelt beside her and began explaining the pressure system, one part at a time. He didn't rush. He didn't mock. He just taught with calm patience, and she listened like it was sacred knowledge. Later, as the system came back online, she smiled a soft, proud smile. You know? Said our species doesn't ask males for help. We command. We expect. Obedience. Cade met her gaze. Then maybe it's time you tried something new. She stood up slowly, brushed her hands clean, and looked down at him. If I did, would you still teach me? I'd teach you more than just systems, he said, but only if you're ready. That night, all 3 sisters sat in silence in their private chamber. He didn't try to touch me, the youngest said softly. Not once. Kyrene nodded. He didn't flirt, didn't beg. But he knew things I couldn't understand, and he made me feel. Koresha closed her eyes. I don't like it, she whispered. It's not following the rules. He's already inside our heads, the youngest said, Kyrene added. And maybe soon. Inside more than that. None of them spoke for a while, but all three of them knew something had started, and it wasn't going to stop. If anything, it was only growing stronger, just like him. Asterisk, the door to the combat bay slid open with a sharp hiss. Cade stepped in slowly, surprised to find the room empty except for one. Figure.ca. Single quotes are, the eldest of the three sisters stood in the middle of the room, her tall frame wrapped in a black combat cloak. Her arms were bare, revealing the ceremonial ink patterns that shimmered. Faintly under the bay lights marks of a war veteran, a champion. Her eyes locked on Cade the moment he entered. You came, she said. I was summoned, Cade replied calmly, glancing around. Didn't expect you'd be alone. Koresha didn't move. This isn't a lesson, it's a challenge. Cade raised an eyebrow. You want to fight me? Oh, she said, walking closer. I want to understand you. He looked at her without blinking. You don't understand me already? She stopped a few steps away. No, and that bothers me. Cade tilted his head. Because I'm not afraid of you? No, she said. Because I can't decide if I want to break you or keep you. The silence that followed her words was thick and heavy. He didn't flinch. You think I'm yours to keep? Koresha took another step, her voice lowered. I'm not used to questioning myself, human. I've led fleets, I've ended wars. I've had males kneel for the chance to be chosen. And yet Cade said, you're standing in front of a human, asking questions you've never asked. Before, she stared at him for a long time. Then suddenly she moved fast, faster than a human eye could follow. In less than a second, she had him pinned against the wall. Her body pressed against his, her breath warm on his neck, but Cade didn't struggle, didn't shout. He simply looked at her with calm, steady eyes. Do it, he said softly. If dominance is what you need, take it. See if it fills the hole. Koresha's hands tightened. Slightly, her fingers dug into his shirt. Her grip wasn't strong anymore. It was trembling. I don't want fear, she whispered. I want to feel what makes you different. Cade raised a hand slowly and placed it on her side. Forcefully, not seductively. Just firm, steady contact. I don't dominate, he said. Connect. That one word hit her harder than any blade. She pulled back a little. But her eyes searched his face, trying to find the lie. There was none. I don't know what to do with you, she admitted. Then stop trying to control it, Cade replied. Let it happen. Koresha stepped away, suddenly feeling more exposed than she had ever been on a battlefield. She wasn't used to being seen, really seen. Especially not by someone who didn't care about her title, her strength, or her status. I came to show you my power, she said, but I think you just showed me yours. Cade didn't smile. He simply nodded once. Power isn't loud, like she. Left the room without another word an hour later. Kyrene sat alone in the ship's observatory, watching the starfield pass. She looked up as her younger sister entered and sat beside her. He touched you, the youngest asked. No, Kyrene answered. I touched him. Did it feel like weakness? Kyrene shook her head. No, it felt like he let me, like he allowed it without needing to win or lose. They sat in silence for a while, then Koresha walked in, arms folded. She didn't sit. She just stood in front of them both. We have a problem, she said. The younger one looked up. What kind? I want him, Koresha said. I think you both do too. The youngest nodded slowly. Kyrene stared at her hands. I hated him at first. But now I think about him when he's not in the room. Koresha took a deep breath. This could break us. The younger sister whispered, or it could bond us. Kyrene looked up, surprised. You'd share him? The girl didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, if he's the only one who makes me feel this alive, why not? Koresha looked at Reen. They all felt it now. The strange, slow-burning need. Not just desire, not just curiosity, but something deeper. Not one of them had marked a mate before. Not one had found a male worth lowering their guard for, until now, at the same moment. Far from their chamber, Cade stood in the maintenance shaft, patching a loose coolant valve. He paused, staring at a faint glow on the metal wall, residue from Zaran B oils, likely from one of them leaning here before. He touched the spot thoughtfully. He wasn't blind to their attention. He felt it in the air, in the way the halls got quieter when he passed, in the way their voices dropped when they said his name. But he wasn't chasing them. If anything, they were circling him. And somewhere deep inside, Cade knew something. Bigger than all of them was building. They had laughed at him once. Now they were whispering his name, and soon they would be screaming it. The training arena pulsed with energy. Dozens of Zaran warriors moved across the floor in synchronized drills, spinning staffs, leaping high, slamming fists into the air with deadly precision. But Cade wasn't watching them. He stood alone at the edge of the arena, adjusting a damaged stabilizer in one of the wall-mounted training drones. Tools in hand, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked focused and calm, like nothing around him could touch him. But something was watching him. From above, Kyrene leaned against the railing. On the second level, eyes fixed on the human below. She had been staring at him for almost 10 minutes now. She didn't know what she was waiting for. Maybe a mistake. Maybe a sign of weakness. Instead, she saw him fix the unit faster than any Zaran tech she knew, and with a gentleness, strange care. Like he wasn't just repairing metal, but healing it. That softness it made her stomach twist, not in disgust, in want. She didn't hear the other voice until it was right behind her. He has you too, doesn't he? Kyrene turned. Karesha was their arms crossed, jaw clenched. You've been up here every day? Karesha said, staring at him. Kyrene replied quietly. You don't stare? I try not to, Karesha muttered, but I fail. Younger sister joined them silently. None of them spoke. They all stood, side by side, eyes fixed on the man below, who had unknowingly bound them. Together in quiet confusion, until a voice cut through the arena floor. It came from an armored Zaran. Male tall, broad and furious. What is that soft meat doing in our war hall? Cade looked up but didn't answer. He just kept working. The warrior stalked toward him, voice louder now. You mock our space by fixing toys, Earthmen? Or are you trying to impress the females? The other warriors had stopped training. All eyes turned to the confrontation. Kyrene's hand gripped the railing. Don't touch him. Karesha narrowed her eyes. Let's see what he does. The male stopped inches from Cade, his armored boots stomping loudly. He shoved a boot forward, knocking Cade's tool out of his hand. Pick it up, he sneered. Cade slowly looked up at him. Not scared. It's not angry. Just quiet. I don't do fetch, Cade said. Gasps rippled through the room. The Zaran warrior laughed a cruel, deep sound, then he moved fast. He swung a thick metal baton toward Cade's ribs, but Cade ducked. One clean move, the baton missed, and hit the wall with a loud clang. Before the warrior could react, Cade twisted his body, grabbed a loose training staff nearby and slid it under the Zaren's legs. With one sharp pull, the massive alien slammed to the ground hard. The silence was complete. Then one soft voice came from above. By the stars, whispered. The youngest sister. He's not just smart. Cade stood over the fallen warrior and calmly picked up his dropped tool. Next time, he said softly, don't swing unless you're ready to fall. He didn't even look at the sisters above, but they had stopped breathing. That night, Cade returned to his quarters, expecting the silence he always found. But he wasn't alone. Karesha was already there. Sitting on his bunk like she had a right to be there. She didn't move when he entered. Just watched him close the door. What are you doing? He asked. Her answer came slow and sure. Watching the storm you've created, he tossed his tool bag down. I didn't start anything. No, she said, standing.
Ow.
Woke something we didn't know we were missing. She stepped close, her eyes burning. I should be furious, she whispered. No male ever made me feel less, not until you. Cade didn't move. So what now? You fight me again? No. She grabbed his shirt and pushed him back against the wall. I let you fight me, she said. Now I want to feel something else. But before she could press closer, he stopped her with one hand on her hip. No games, Cade said. No power plays. If this is just dominance, I'm not interested. She blinked, then slowly, her grip loosened. I don't want to dominate you anymore, she admitted. Her hand shook. I think I want to understand you, and maybe belong to you. Cade leaned forward, voice barely above a breath. Then you'll have to earn me. She swallowed, and then without pride, without pressure, she kissed him. Not as a warrior, but as a woman. Later, she slept quietly in his bed. Kyrene stood outside his door. She had seen her sister enter. She had heard the faint noises, and she didn't feel angry. She felt desperate, desperate for her own moment with him, for his voice, his calm, his touch. She pressed a hand to the wall and whispered to herself, Tomorrow, I go to him. Behind her, the youngest sister stood in the shadows, watching too, and she whispered, Not if I get there first. The race had started, not to conquer the human, but to be claimed. Before the others, Asterisk the next morning felt different. Not because the ship changed, but because they had. The sisters no longer walked side by side in the corridors. Karesha stayed silent, her expression unreadable. Kyrene moved with restless tension, lips tight, avoiding her sister's eyes. And the youngest one, usually shy and playful, now walked with strange purpose, watching every door, listening for footsteps. Everyone on the ship felt it. The air was thick with something unspoken, something magnetic, and it all led back to him. Cade was in the maintenance bay again, crouched beside an exposed wiring panel. He had music playing softly from a small speaker, old earth jazz, warm and relaxed. He hummed along quietly as he worked, completely unaware of the storm brewing around him, but he wasn't alone for long. Kyrene entered without a word. She wore no armor this time, just a simple training shirt and loose pants. Her hair was tied back tight, her eyes sharper than usual. He glanced up. Didn't expect company. I didn't ask permission, she said flatly. Cade shrugged. You don't need to. She stood there a moment, then walked past him and sat on a nearby crate. You slept with her. He didn't respond right away. He finished twisting a wire and closed the panel. I didn't take anything, he finally said. She gave it. Kyrene stared at the floor. I know. I didn't promise her anything either. I know that too. The silence stretched Kyrene, clenched her fists. I came to claim you first, just didn't know how. Cade stood slowly wiping his hands. He looked at her. Really looked. And now, still want to, she said. But not because of pride. Not because I need to win. Then why? She lifted her head. Her voice trembled. Because you see me, and I feel seen for the first time in my life. Cade took a slow step forward, and another. He stopped right in front of her. You don't have to prove anything to me, he said. But if you want me, I won't be yours by force. Kyrene stood and kissed him. It wasn't wild. It wasn't rushed. It was real. And when they pulled apart, her eyes were wet. I don't know what this means. She whispered. It doesn't have to mean anything yet, he replied. We'll figure it out. But as she left, the bay heart pounding, breath shaking, another shadow moved in the corridor. The youngest sister had watched it all. She didn't cry, she didn't speak. She just turned and ran fast, quiet and alone. Hours passed. Cade returned to his quarters more tired than usual. Not physically, but emotionally. The sisters were like three storms circling him from different directions, and each one pulled at something inside him he hadn't expected to feel. He stepped into his room and stopped. The youngest sister sat on the floor, knees hugged to her chest, eyes red, but not crying anymore. He closed the door gently. How long have you been here? Since before you returned, she said. I didn't hear you. You weren't meant to. Cade knelt in front of her. Are you okay? She looked up at him, blinking fast. No, but I want to be. He waited. She spoke slowly, I thought. Maybe if I made you laugh, if I learned your machines, if I followed your ways, maybe you'd see me like you see them. I do see you, he said. She shook her head. Not like that. Not the strong one. I'm not the clever one. Just the youngest. Stop, he said gently. You're the only one who ever asked me to teach. You were the first one who listened. Her voice broke. But they touched you first. He reached out, took her hand, and held it between both of his. That doesn't mean they touched more. She stared at him, breath caught in her chest. He leaned closer, eyes warm and steady. You don't need to change to win me. You just have to be real. And in that moment, something inside her snapped, not in pain, but in release. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead to his, eyes closing. I don't care if I'm last, she whispered. I just want to matter. You already do. That night, she didn't ask for anything more. She simply curled up beside him, arms wrapped around his chest, her breathing slow and calm, and in the early morning light, for the first time since he boarded this alien ship, Cade felt peace, but that peace wouldn't last, because later that day, the sisters gathered again, this time in private, the high chamber above the core. None of them spoke for a long time. Then Karesha broke the silence. We can't keep circling him like beasts in heat. Kyrene nodded. Agreed. This is turning into a war. The youngest sister stood by the window. I don't want to fight anymore. Karesha exhaled slowly. Then we need a choice. Kyrene looked up. A decision. No, the youngest said quietly. A surrender. They all turned to her. I say we ask him, she continued. Not who he wants, but how he wants us. Kyrene frowned. You mean all of us? Karesha's voice was a whisper now. He already has all of us. We just haven't said it out loud. And in the silence that followed, all three sisters knew it was true. They weren't just drawn. To Cade, they were his. Now the only question was, did he want all of them? Or would he choose just one? Tomorrow they would find out. Cade woke to quiet breathing against his chest. The youngest sister still slept beside him, curled like a child, seeking warmth not from cold, but from everything she'd been missing all her life. Her arms held him with trust, not control. Her fingers twitched softly as she dreamed. Cade stayed still for a moment, watching her. He had never expected this, never wanted to be the center of anything, much less them. And yet, here he was, wrapped in a tangle of feelings he didn't ask for, but couldn't ignore. He rose carefully and stepped out, letting her sleep. But the hallway wasn't empty. Kyrene leaned against the wall outside his door. Her arms crossed, eyes loned, angry but thoughtful. You didn't invite me in, she said. I didn't know I needed to, Cade replied. She gave a small breath of something like laughter. She beat me to it again. He walked past her without saying more, but she followed. You know we're going to break if this continues like this, Kyrene said. We've fought beside each other our whole lives, but we've never shared a man. Cade stopped and turned to her. Do you want to fight her? Kyrene paused, then shook her head. No, I want what she has, but not by taking it away. Cade looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Then don't. Just be honest. With that, he walked on. He needed air, a time to think, a time to breathe. But again, he wasn't alone for long. The top level of the ship's observation deck gave a full view of the starfield. Cade stepped into the wide, quiet dome and found Karesha standing there. She didn't turn when he entered. Everything's different now, she said softly, and it can't go back. Cade walked beside her and stared out the wide window. Stars blinked in the black. Slow movement. Endless silence. They're not afraid of you anymore, Karesha added. They're afraid of what they're feeling. For you, I didn't ask for any of this, Cade said. I know, that's what makes it worse. Or maybe better. Karesha turned toward him. Do you want just one of us? Cade didn't answer right away. Then he said, I don't know. If I can choose, and even if I could, I don't think that's what this is. Karesha narrowed her eyes. You think we belong to you? All three? I think, he said slowly, that each of you brings something different out of me. You challenge me. She teaches me patience. The youngest, she reminds me how to be soft again. Karesha looked down. So what are we supposed to do? Line up like offerings? Let you keep all of us? No, Cade said. But I also won't pretend this is something casual anymore. He stepped forward, his voice lower now. You're not just warriors. You're women. You feel, you burn. And now you've all touched men different ways. Karesha's jaw tensed. She hated this, hated how much sense he made, hated how... She couldn't find a way to walk away. She stepped even closer. What if I told you I want all of you to myself? She whispered, then I'd tell you that what we've started can't be owned. It has to be shared or it breaks. And what if we said yes? Cade studied her face. Strong, proud, but behind her fierce eyes, need. I wouldn't. Take you unless you meant it, he said. Karesha swallowed hard, then stepped back. Call them, she said. Not tonight. Later in his quarters, the air was thick with tension. 3 sisters, 1 human. None of them spoke at first. Cade stood in the center, looking at each of them. I won't make promises I can't keep, he said. But if this is going to happen, it has to be real. Karine stepped forward first. No games, she said. The youngest followed. No lies. Then Karesha. No dominance. Not between us. Not with you. Cade nodded once, and then he stepped forward. What followed wasn't chaos. It wasn't wild. It wasn't a name listing. A collision of walls. A collision of need and trust. They didn't compete. They shared. And in the soft lights of the room, under skin and breath and touch, something more powerful than desire took shape. They didn't moan his name out of lust. They whispered it like a vow. Hours passed like minutes, and by the time they lay tangled together, breathless and quiet, none of them felt alone anymore. Silence was broken only when the youngest sister placed a hand on Cade's chest and whispered, You've changed us. Karine pressed her lips to his shoulder, and now we belong to you. Karesha closed her eyes and murmured, No, he belongs to us. Cade didn't reply. He didn't need to. In that moment, he knew. They had all crossed a line they could never uncross. But instead of fear, there was peace. Real peace. And the galaxy would never be the same. Because the warriors who once laughed at the weak Earthman now whispered his name like a prayer, and tomorrow the stars would learn why. Asterisk, the stars drifted by outside the ship's observation dome, quiet and eternal, but nothing inside the vessel felt the same anymore. Cade stood on the bridge alone, but not lonely. He stared out into space, arms behind his back, his breathing steady. All around him, the crew moved with quiet respect. Even the males, once dismissive and smug, now gave him space. Some nodded when they passed. Others simply avoided his eyes. He hadn't earned their fear. He'd earned something more dangerous. Their attention. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a commander. He was a man who had changed 3 of their strongest women and, through them, changed the flow of the ship. There had been no announcement, no ceremony, but everyone knew. Karesha, Karine, and their younger sister had chosen him, or maybe he had chosen them. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the balance that formed from something no one expected, devotion born not from war, but from stillness. And now even the ship felt different, more alive. Behind him, the command doors opened with a soft hiss. He didn't turn around. I know that walk, he said calmly. Kyrene's voice followed, low and soft. You should. Right? You've listened to it enough. She stepped beside him, carrying a data slate. We've been called to the Varen system, she said. Council meeting. All ranking representatives must attend. Cade raised an eyebrow. I'm not a representative. You are now, she replied. They named you human envoy this morning. The vote passed without debate. He turned to her slowly. That was fast. She smiled, not when people are scared. He didn't laugh, but his smile deepened. They fear what you've done. To us, she added. How you moved through a warrior caste without lifting a single blade. I didn't do anything, he said. No, she replied. You didn't, and that's what made it impossible to stop you. Kareen touched the side of his neck where her own scent lingered faintly. They're whispering now, she added. Other ships? Other races? The story is spreading. He nodded once. Let it spread. The door opened again. This time, it was the youngest sister. She held a small wrapped package. I brought food, she said quickly, nervous and bright-eyed. You haven't eaten. Kyrene glanced at her, but didn't argue. Not anymore. The youngest placed the tray near the console and stepped back. I also wanted to tell you something, she said quietly. Both Cade and Kyrene turned toward her. She looked down. Her fingers rubbed her wrist nervously. I feel strange lately, she said. Different. Hot and cold. Sick in the mornings. Kyrene straightened. You think? The youngest nodded. Kyresha entered then, calm as always, but her eyes locked onto her sister's face. She saw the flush, the tremble. It's the early stage, Kyresha said. The signs are there. Cade took a breath. You're pregnant? The youngest stepped forward. I don't know for sure, but yes, I think it's yours. He didn't step back. He stepped closer, and he touched her cheek. You're not afraid? She asked. He shook his head. You gave me yourself without conditions. Now, I give you myself. Without fear, Kyresha crossed her arms. Our bloodlines. Haven't mixed with humans before? We don't know what kind of child this will be. Kyrene spoke softly. Then we protect it. Together, the youngest added. Cade nodded. I never came here for power, he said. But if this child is ours, then it will be raised in peace. Kyresha glanced at the command monitors. Peace, she repeated. We've been trained to kill, to conquer. But maybe peace was the one thing we didn't know how to feel. Till you. Cade stepped between them. He took all three of their hands one after another, and he looked each of them in the eyes. Let the galaxy talk, he said. Let them laugh again. But this time, when they laugh, we'll already have something. They don't, Kyrene whispered. What's that? He smiled. Each other. The cum panel blinked to life. The council was waiting. Kyresha turned and walked to the command seat. But before sitting, she looked back at the others. This time, she said, we don't go in as warriors. We go in as something more. Cade looked out into the dark once more. Somewhere out there, old enemies still believed humans were soft, small, slow. Let them believe, because the next time a planet mocked the human male, they wouldn't hear him argue. They'd hear three proud, fierce voices rise behind him. And if that didn't stop them, then maybe the child growing inside her would. A new bloodline, a new kind of strength, born not from fire but from connection. And the galaxy would never be the same again. Not after him, not after them.